Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm a Boeing 737 pilot, and today we are going to fly the 737-600 from ORBX new Oslo scenery towards Tromsø in northern Norway. Now, before we actually start doing the flight, we will have a quick look around Oslo airport because this is a truly amazing scenery. So we're going to start up right up here at the entry to the terminal on the roads leading up to the terminal, and we've actually been just brought here by the bus, so let's take the passengers way all the way over. And there is some truly amazing modeling done here by ORBX. By the way, just to be sure, I did not receive a free copy of this, so I'm actually saying it because I mean it, and not because, because this would be a paid advert. It is not. So, this is actually a truly amazing looking airport. You may remember my video on the 737-900 and doing the walk through the terminal in Newark, and now this is really very, very close to what we saw over there in Newark. Very nice modeling here in parts of the airport that you would otherwise never see. Now, might be a little bit empty over here, but if that means we can just hop over the security and go right over to our airplane, that may actually be a good thing. Now, quick thing, let's quickly explore the departure hall before we actually start making our way, because there's quite some amazing modeling going on in here as well, and we even have the duty-free shops over here modeled. Even though, lorem ipsum, I like it. I absolutely like it. Okay, well, enough talking, let's actually make our way to the plane. We're today parked on gate number 18, and once we're at the aircraft we can start reviewing our flight information in order to start heading out for our trip towards Tromsø. This is going to be a quick 1 hour 30, 1 hour 35 trip, and we are expecting good weather conditions en route, but it might be a little bit gusty over in Tromsø, so we'll have to see about that and how the weather is going to develop over there. In any case, it's been a little while since I've last flown the 737-600, so that is going to be a little bit of a challenge in those gusty conditions, but I'm positive that we can do it. Nice little adverts up here, even though I tend to doubt the word travel value. Okay, that is not our plane yet. No, that's definitely not ours. Let's go one further. And here we are. That looks like ours. That looks like our little ride for the day. So, 737-600. It's definitely been a while since I've flown this one. And good morning to everybody who's just joined in the chat. Sir Kel's Gaming, good morning to Arkansas. And Nathan, morning to San Diego. Wow, that must be really early morning for you today. Alright then, let's head over to our plane. We're gonna jump the queue over here. And this, by the way, is some awesome modeling done here by ORBX on the airport. I almost wish I parked the plane a little bit better, but I guess we have to live with what we have. So, welcome to the 737-600 cockpit. Now, before we're going to start firing up the airplane, let's have a quick look into our flight documentation to see what we're up to. And here's what we have, our flight plan from Oslo to Tromsø. So, flight level 390 is the planned level, and cost index 6, which is really not a lot, but from what I found on my researches, that is actually what Scandinavian Airlines is using on the 737. So let's go ahead to the really interesting part here, seeing that we're flying in Norway in winter, and that is the weather forecast. So Oslo at the moment -1 degree in cavalcade conditions, and during the evening there is a little bit of snow forecast. Prior to that we have generally good weather. And if we look into the destination, then we have tempo wind 190 at 28, gusting 14 knots, 2,000 meters in snow showers, vertical visibility 900 meters, and in 2,600 feet the wind is 170 degrees at 50 knots. That's quite a bit of wind. And looking at the forecast over here, we have a tempo forecast until 1400 UTC of 210.25 gusting 40 with some drifting snow, and then pretty much during the entire day, temporarily 2000 meters in snow showers and rain. And then this is until 1400 prop 30 tempo thunderstorms, but we should arrive after that. Looking at the alternate airports that we've planned, Alta is looking good, Kiruna is looking very good. Banak is not all that good, but this is in front of us. And yeah, this is what we can expect. Then Andoya, what do we have here? Until 1600, so those may still be there, those gusts. Anyway, we have two good alternate airports here, which are both Alta and Kiruna. So let's go ahead and see what they've planned. Their plan is in Alta, it seems, so that had good weather. And how much more fuel is Kiruna? Just 150 kilos more, so not really something to be worried about. Okay, I'd say all in all, 5837 is the planned fuel. If we take 6 tons of fuel, that should certainly be enough for our flight today. Okay, so that's pretty much what we are planned to use. So let's quickly get a fuel truck, and then we can start filling up the plane as well. So target 6000. For the passengers we're going to use 130. And we'll have a little bit of freight as well. 1200 in the front hold, 200 in the aft hold, and that should be all we need today. Okay then, perfect. Let's go ahead and start up our aircraft. The configuration of the plane is as close to the real Scandinavian 737-600 as I could find, and note that this plane actually has a heads-up display installed. So that's something that's certainly going to be interesting for us during the course of the flight. Park and brake, yes it works, on my system at least. Keep in mind, if you're using the Sim Update 12 beta at the moment, then the park and brake is going to be inoperative. Okay, so we're gonna deal with the setup of the heads-up display later on. Flash recorder, test, make sure the all-flight extinguishers, put it back on, and then we've got the master caution overhead illuminated as we have over here. And the IRSs can go on, and with that we are pretty much done with the setup. Okay, light test. I typically tend to forget it in the simulator, so I thought I'd rather do it straight away, making sure that every of those lights is actually illuminated. Now, I'm going to tell you a little story about the lights a little bit later on during the flight, as I found something quite interesting out about a couple of those lights, which wasn't really documented in any manual, but we'll talk about it later on. Okay, what's that? Fuel low warning with 1070 per tank. That doesn't look correct to me. Normally they should only come on at quite a bit less fuel, 900 kilos per tank. Well, anyway, we'll get them refueling and then we'll see about this problem. Is the fuel truck here? Yes, it is. Okay, perfect. Let's see when the... Okay, now it goes out. Interesting. It should have been 1800 kilos. Or 900 kilos, that is a company option. But, well, we'll see about it. And Regics, what made me fly the 600 today? Well, basically the fact that the airport pair I wanted to fly to is actually a Scandinavian pair, and Scandinavian had the 600s in the past. They no longer do, but they did have them. So I thought like, hey, I might as well just use the 600 again, because it is a nice airplane. It has quite a bit of power, so definitely an enjoyable airplane to fly, and then why not do it? Okay, let's start programming the FMS, and we are setting in a 600. The ARIC is updated, the new one just became effective today, 22K engines installed, version 62. Let's go ahead then, we are in ENGM. Take the left GPS position, and then I'm gonna go from Oslo, request, towards Tromsø, select. Call sign is gonna be Scandinavian 38 Tango, as we have it up here. Load the route, please. Always takes a little while, might just have been quicker simply to enter the company route name, but here we go. Okay, let's see, runway in use 030 at 6, that means runway 01 is going to be the active site here in Oslo. And then looking at the route itself, 01 left is planned with the Ribby 1 Alpha arrival, okay. Sorry, departure. 01 left, Ribby 1 Alpha. And for the arrival over in Tromsø, runway 18, at wake 1 Mike arrival, and it's going to be the ILS approach. And the arrival leads us towards non-route. We have a non-route transition. Yes, we do. Perfect. Okay, Cossack 6, reserve fuel 2000 kilos, reserve fuel weight 48.6, flight level 390 is planned, wind 291 at 35, temperature deviation +4, sorry, I'm too much in the mood of the real 737. We have a slightly different performance layout in my airline. +4, that makes it -52 degrees. And then I'd need to lie if I told you the transition altitude out of my head, so let's quickly have a first look into the charts, and then we can see what we can expect as well. River 1 Alpha, transition altitude 7,000. I can work with that. Okay, that looks good to me. Temperature is +1 now, so we don't need to do cold temperature correction. That's very good. Then let's have a look into the performance tool. Unfortunately, no 737-600 available yet, as far as I can tell. Nope. So let's take the 700 numbers, and we'll take the EASA rules. We're gonna cheat a little bit with the weight calculations later on, but that shall be alright. Okay, so engine failure procedure at 7 DME Golf Romeo Mike, right turn to VBook. So let's say Golf Romeo Mike. And we go to 7 DME. And then right turn towards VBook. Okay, hold 274 inbound, right turns, non-published holding MSA 36. Okay, that means if we take 094 as a radial, that basically draws us the inbound course. And what we can do as well at the end of the legs page, we're gonna enter the same holding, so VBook in here, create a discontinuity, delete the other waypoint again, and here we go. So holding, next holding, VBook, and then we want to enter 274, right hand turns, MSA they say 3,600, so let's say we climb to 4,000 feet. Okay, perfect. The rest of the performance we can deal with later on. For now, let's continue with the FMC setup. 250 knots, yeah, still doesn't work, okay, in the real one it would. Descent winds, we can request them later on, but I want to tell it the flight levels for which we want to request the winds, so let's put that in and request. And transition level probably going to be somewhere around 90 actually. But we'll see about it. Okay, so then let's do the system setup of the plane next. So after overhead panel, come on, there we go. And that looks all good, no warnings except the flight recorder off light. Go down prawn, nav transfer display switch is normal auto, fuel. Also be sure to test the thrust feed, make sure the light illuminates first bright, then dim, when you close it bright, then off. And once you've done that, do a quick light check to make sure the light itself is actually still working, because the circuit breaker of the light is the same circuit breaker as for the system, which means that in case we would do the test and the system failed while closing, the light would also go off, which is a little bit of a trap there in the 737, but I'm afraid that is what it is. Okay, refueling is completed. Let's actually go ahead and start boarding. Might take a little while, and we can request the ground handling as well. Okay, onto the overhead panel. Fueling is complete, so fast melts can go on. When we on, we don't have auto probe heat installed here, but it's +1 degree, so not a problem. Hydraulic pumps on, flight recorder on. Temperatures are very cold. Okay, we're gonna fire up the APU. I'm on a flight level 390. And what's the field elevation over there? Runway 82 minus 50 feet, so 30 feet elevation. Let's use 50 as the land alt. Okay, do we have any initial climb altitude? Let's have a look. Yes, 7,000. And here we go. Runway 01, so runway heading is going to be something in the region 010. Let's just pre-select that for now. Same for the courses, it's going to be an entire hour of departure, so we don't have to set anything on the courses. But you never know if you might need it for anything. Okay, so let's see. Oil quantity, we've got 94 and 99, and then for the hydraulics, we got full systems as well. Very good. Okay, brake set, radios. We don't have any ATC online at the moment, which is unfortunate, but then we are going to depart on Honeycomb. And on the number 2 radio, as always, we take the guard frequency, because you never know what may happen. For the radios, let's try to put something useful in, so I'm going to use the emergency turn for that, since as we can see, the SID is entirely RNAV. But if we have a look over here, then we can actually take Golf Romeo Mike VOR 15.95, so let's go ahead and use that. Okay, 1595, and we do the same on the FO side. 1595. Get rid of that silly standard squawk. No idea where PMDG got that from. And obviously, we want to be using the armrests today.
Traffic, Division 9, Lima Tango, stand 73.
Okay, and thanks, leaving the frequency again. So, the last thing we've got to set up is the heads-up display, so let's quickly get that piece of information as well, have another look into the charts. Runway 1 left has a length of 3,600 meters and an elevation of 6 657 feet. Okay. .657, and we said the length of it is going to be 3,600. Enter. Okay. So that is pretty much our system setup complete. QNH1008, we can also pre-select the MFRA, which is going to be something in the region of 1,700. Okay, with that done, let's start the takeoff briefing. Threats for the departure. It's an airport that I'm not too familiar with, so we'll take the taxi slowly, and there is no air traffic control online, so that means that we will have to liaise with any aircraft on Honeycomb, and that should be mostly it. Okay then, let's go ahead and do a route check. For that we need the flight plan once more. Here it is. So going from Echo Golf November Mike towards Echo November Tango Charlie, we are the Sierra Alpha Sierra 38 Tango. For our routing, we have River 1 Alpha departure, Zulu 125 Somup, Zulu 101 Gubath, direct Pano, direct Adweg, and the Adweg 1 Mike arrival. And the ground distance is going to be 640 versus 643, 2.8 remaining. Fuel required 2.0, that gives us 20 minutes of extra fuel for the flight. Okay, instrument cross-check. Time UTC 1323, altimeter 1008, reading 690. The flight directors are on, minus master, standby instrument set. Left seat takeoff, runway 01 left, flaps 1, noise abatement procedure number 2, and we are using a special EOSIT today. 7 miles from Golf Romeo Mike, and then we turn to the right towards Viborg, which, as we can see over here, the holding is pre-inserted, 274 right-hand turns. MSA 3600, so we climb to an altitude of 4,000 feet. Emergency briefing. Above 80 knots, I will only reject for fire or fire warning, engine failure, predictive wind shear warning, aircraft unable or unsafe to fly. If I call stop, I will simultaneously close the thrust lever, disengage the auto throttle, apply maximum manual braking or verify operation of the RTO auto brakes. Manually raise the speed brake lever, apply maximum reverse thrust, and when the aircraft comes to stop, I will set the park and brake. Now, from the first officer's side. If you call stop, I will note the brakes on speed and call speed brakes up or speed brakes not up and thrust reverse normal or abnormal indications. I'll call 100 knots, 80 knots, 60 knots and the runway distance remaining. Verify your actions, call your emissions. I will call auto brake disarm and select flaps 40 when the parking brake has been set and advise ATC of the reject. We then identify the failure and carry out any drills as appropriate. If we decide to evacuate, we reach into the evacuation checklist. Time permits, we'll pull the CBR circuit breaker. You grab the lid, then we get out. If the call before V1 is keep going, there will be no actions below 400 feet except to cancel any warnings and raise the landing gear with a positive rate. At 400 feet, verify heading select and carry out the memory items. At the MFRA, buck up and retract the flaps and schedule, flaps up no light, select level change, max continued thrust, engage the automatics, non-normal checklist, and then we decide on the further course of action. Let's have a look at the taxi then. We are parking on stand number 18. And that is located just up here, so pushback is going to be into Golf. Normal taxi out via Golf, and November for a full-length departure, runway 01 left. It's the River 1 Alpha departure, and that is on a chart 10-3 Delta, effective 25th of March 2021. Let's have a look what that looks like in the FMC. 01 left, River 1 Alpha departure. Transition altitude 7,000 feet versus 7,001 feet. RNAV 1 is required, we have that. Surveillance service shall be available, it is. Due to simultaneous parallel departures, change to Oslo approach frequency shall always be initiated by Gardermoen Tower. Okay, en route cruising level will be issued after takeoff by Oslo approach or Polaris control. When being vectored or cleared for direct routing, climb gradient apply. Noise abatement procedure number 2 is used during climb out. Okay, let's quickly check that. Noise abatement procedure number 2 means acceleration 1,000 feet above the field. So let's pre-enter that in the VNAV page. Speed limit, maximum 250 knots on below flight level 100 unless otherwise instructed. Let's have a quick look over here, and 250 knots below 100 is in. Initial climb clearance, 7,000 feet. That's pre-selected on the MCP, and we can put that on the FMC as well. So we have 7,000 feet twice. Now let's have a look at the routing that we're going to fly. The chart app seems a little bit buggy right now. Look at how the view is constantly shifting around. Anyway, so for the routing, we climb on 012 degrees, 2.6 miles, Golf Mike 436, max 230 knots. Here we have 011, 3.8, that's because of the length of the runway, and 230 knots. Then a left turn 238, 1.9 miles, Golf Mike 037, that's in here. Same 347 degrees, 3.6 miles, Golf Mike 438. That's in here, and I've got the stop altitude entered in here. And then finally 019 degrees, 26.4 miles towards Pamis. 019, 26.4 to Pamis. And then 359, 19.6 towards Nufsa. And then 356, 18 miles towards Ribbe. And that's what we have. Okay, any questions on the departure briefing? Well, probably not. Then before we continue with the checklist, couple comments there from Elling. First of all, good morning to Tromsø. See you in about an hour and a half or something, I hope. Zoe, the aircraft is stationary. Is the modeling of is it modeled that the pilot is breathing there? That is a feature of FS Realistic that I have enabled. So that's FS Realistic you see there. And the Aviator, would you mind sharing which takeoff performance calculator you use? I'm using I'm using Virtual Performance Tool. Meant to say SimToolkit Pro, but I only use SimToolkit Pro to access the website there. And Gabor is asking, do you think PMDG will make a preference calculator? I assume you meant to say performance calculator, and yes, they will definitely do that. They had it in the P3D versions of their aircraft, and I'm very sure they're going to have it in the Microsoft Flight Simulator version as well. Alright then, let's go ahead and do the takeoff performance. So for that, we are going to use Virtual Performance Tool once again. So let's first of all start by filling out the information that we need. So first thing, do we want to depart from any intersection? So let's have a look at the chart again. I would say that, yeah, Alpha 4, Alpha 5 maybe would definitely cut our taxi short. So let's see what we have over here. And we have Alpha 4 available, very good. It's going to be a dry runway. We have the latest weather up here in Virtual Performance Tool as well. But we always take the most conservative wind, so in this case that's going to be 060, as it is the most off from the runway heading. So 060 degrees, 4 knots. Then we have a temperature of 1 QNH 1008 optimum. Let's go for optimum for the flaps, as in the 600 we don't really have any problems with tail strike. Don't need the anti-ice, as it's clear skies and 1 degree. Okay then, landing dispatch, we're going to Tromsø, runway 18, and we take the Cat 1 4% minima. 4%, and let's actually take that a dry snow. Calm winds, it's definitely going to be headwind, so that's conservatively calculated. Temperature, I'll take it 0, it's -1 right now, so once again we are on the conservative side. QNH 968, and without wind, let's calculate. Flaps 30, engine anti-ice on. And that gives us our dispatch landing weights over here. Okay, so over to the takeoff dispatch, that's the more important thing for us. Now, of course, in Flight Simulator, we don't have any performance tool for the 737-600 yet. So we'll just go ahead and use the FMC to determine the weights here. And let's see, the cargo is loaded, these guys can go. Passengers are also on board. And that's pretty much it. We can put the air conditioning on, since the APU is running. Okay then. Init ref, 0 fuel, what do we have? 49.8, that's 1.2 more than the planned fuel. Sorry, than the planned weight. So let's have a quick look into the flight plan. Weight change, 1 ton more, plus 51 kilos, and no change to the time. Okay, so plus 51 kilos in the fuel, that means we now need 5887. That's 5,970 on board, so plenty of fuel. We can take those weights, and that makes a gross weight of 55.9. Let's go ahead, select that, and then VPT, takeoff weight 55,900. Calculate. Up 1 takeoff at 20k 42 degrees. Okay, so 20k 42 degrees, 83.8 versus 85.2. That is not quite the same. Why is there such a big difference? And we have a 20k engine up here, 42 degrees plus 1. That should more or less work out. Well, it's going to be the difference between the 737-600 that we have, that we're sitting in, and the 700 for which we're doing the takeoff calculation over here. So we'll just accept that for now. Flaps 1, and the speeds will be different as well, of course, but since we're sitting in the 600, I'm just going to accept whatever we have here in the FMC. Now, if we had a takeoff calculator for the 600, of course we could not do that, but since we are using a different calculator over here, I'm just going to do that for now. Okay, it means we take 7 units of trim. That's going to take quite a while. And the 136, we can put that up in the MCP. Sorry, 132 of course. Set. 7.7 units trim is almost set as well. Here we go. Okay, then we can start with the safety inspection checklist, and before start checklist, down to the line. Actually, I'll quickly say hello to the passengers first, then we have that done as well. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon from the flight deck. This is your captain speaking. My name is Emmanuel, in the name of Scandinavian Airlines. Welcome aboard our flight towards Tromsø. Flight time today about 1 hour and 35 minutes. We expect a smooth ride at 39,000 feet. I would like to welcome you once again on board of our aircraft, and the cabin crew is shortly going to perform the safety demonstration. That happens for your own safety, so please pay your full attention, as it is not only for your safety, but also for the safety of the passengers sitting around you. Thank you very much for being with us today. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the flight with us. Okay, that's the passengers covered. Let's get the APU online, as it is right now, and then cabin is secure. We can close the doors. Ground power can go. Park and brake is set. The chocks can go. Doors close. And time to get a pushback. And handling by Scandinavia. No, we don't need de-icing. We definitely don't need de-icing, the plane is looking fine. Okay, so, safety inspection checks and before start checklist down to the line. Surfaces and shocks, checked. Maintenance status, checked. Battery, on.
Hello, Captain. We are ready for pushback.
Hydraulic pumps on. Landing gear lever down. Ship's library checked. IRS mode selectors, nav, gear pins are located down here. 1, 2, 3 removed. Probe covers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 removed. Light test checked. Oxygen test 100%. Yaw damper on. Navigation, transfer and display switches normal and auto. Fuel 5,887 required. 5,970 on board. 4 pumps on. Cabin utility IV galley power on. Emergency exit lights armed. Fasten belts on. Window heat on. Air conditioning and pressurization. Packs auto. Bleeds on. Set. Pressurization mode selector. Auto. Instruments. Cross checked. Auto brakes. RTO. Hydraulics. Normal. Speed brake. Down detent, park and brake set, start from cutout which is normal. Wheel by fire warning checked, radius, radar and transponder, set and standby, rudder and aileron trims, 3 and 0, takeoff briefing, discussed, PA, complete, FMC and CDU. Set, N1 IS box, automatic, reduced 20k, speeds to 626 T2, set, stub trim, 7.7 units, set, performance, weight and balance, sign send, phones off, EFB, airplane mode stowed, flight deck windows and cockpit door, locked, doors, always the same with those overwing exits, locked, passengers seated, before start checklist complete down to the line. Okay, there is no ATC online, got him on traffic, Scandinavian 38, Tango, pushing back, stand 18. Before start checklist below the line. Air conditioning packs off, anti-collision light on, park and brake set, transponder alt off, before start checklist complete.
I got him on traffic, Yuri Joe 537, passing 3,500 feet, and on the Oxford Pro.
I don't need any de-icing, nose to the right, and off we go. Okay, brake set, brake released.
Due to icing conditions, please stand by for engine start until push completed and brake set.
And off we go. The area beyond is clear. One guy is pushed over there.
Traffic, between 90 Tango, runway 01 right, taking off Oxford.
So that should be good enough for us. What's the FMC saying there? Everything gone by now. Okay. So, we are leaving the gate area. Start engine number 2. And 2. And 1, oil pressure. Man, quite a bit of traffic at the moment. That gotta be the new ORBX release. But it's a stunningly looking scenery, so absolutely understandable. Starter, cutout, monitor 2. And let's bring a little bit of warm air into the cabin. Isolated pack operation, starting engine number 1.
Set parking brakes.
Cockpit to ground. We have a good engine start.
And 2. Oil pressure. And 1. Fuel on, make sure the valves are operating correctly, lights are going bright then off.
Unlocking gear.
Got a cutout, monitor number 1.
Tow truck disconnected.
Number 1
Light
stable.
has been removed. Left is clear, right is clear.
Okay, so let's wait until the ground crew has disconnected. Truck is going. And there he goes, he's holding a pin in the hand, that's good enough for me. Okay, hand signal is received. Flight control track. Full up, full down, neutral, full left, full right, neutral, rudder, full left, full right, neutral. Before taxi checklist. Generators on, APU off, start switches continuous, probe beat on, anti-ice off, air conditioning, max auto, bleeds on, isolation valve, auto, flaps, 1 required, 1 selected, green light, step trim, 7.7 required and set. Start lever idle detent, flight controls checked, recall checked, before taxi checklist complete. Okay, so let's get that heads-up display down. Brakes off, config. Bottom on traffic, Scandinavian 3 Tango, taxi holding point from the 0. Okay, we're clear of any obstructions. We'll clear the apron, then we take the first taxiway to the left-hand side. With that, our taxi routing is pretty much understood. Here it is for you guys again. Straight out of the apron, first left into November, then left. Okay, before takeoff checklist down to the line. Config checked, flaps, 1 green light, step trim, 7.7 set. Takeoff briefing. Left to takeoff, runway 01 left, flaps 1, noise abatement procedure 2, speeds 262632, PAX auto, bleeds on, anti-ice off. The runways and taxiways over here do seem to be cleared of ice, so that's not going to be a concern for us. Now, the standard instrument departure is going to take us standard instrument departure is going to take us straight ahead for about 3 miles, then a left turn out, climbing initially altitude 7,000 feet, that is set once and twice. And in case of any emergencies, we climb straight ahead 7 miles Golf Romeo Mike, which is set active on both VORs and also on the fixed page. And then we make a right-hand turn towards that RNAV waypoint hold, 247 inbound, right-hand turns, climbing altitude 4,000, MSA 3,600. Any questions? No? Very good. Then that's the before takeoff checklist complete down to the line. Okay, clear on the left, clear on the right. There's one guy taking off on the runway right now. So let's take Alpha 4 intersection. Bottom on traffic, Scandinavian 3 Tango behind the departing aircraft, line up runway 01 left, Alpha 4 behind. Okay, he's going. Before takeoff, checklist below the line. MCP, set, transponder, Tara, strobe lights on, holding at landing lights. In the left, in the right. FMC message, unable next altitude. Got that for now. Okay. Timing. Stabilized. Set takeoff thrust. Takeoff thrust set, indications normal. Correct.
Positive rate of climb.
You're up. flaps up. Speed check, flaps up. One aircraft flying up there. Really fun to fly the plane with the HUD. Takes a little bit of getting used to, especially using the flight director here, but really fun to fly this. Okay. Command A. Let's climb up to a higher flight level. Let's make it 150 initially. Set. 150 checked. Set standard after takeoff checklist. And that does not look very turbulent outside, so we can release the cabin crew. So, air conditioning and pressurization 2.2, climbing and set. Altimeters, standard, passing 6.3, climbing 150, after takeoff checklist complete. The scenery is stunning here, isn't it? I always love flying over those huge forests in Scandinavia. And just having a look at the vast, broad terrain that we have over here. Okay, clear the flight level 150. That means we can remove the climb thrust derate. So full climb thrust. Gives us a nice little boost for our climb performance as well. Altimeters, passing 100, climbing 150, the 10 checks please. Okay, 10 checks, so fuel is balanced and we have 4 pumps on, lights off, APU off, air condition and pressurization, 4.0, climbing and set, fasten belts, although it doesn't look turbulent to me, so fasten belts auto. Recall checked, 1 to 1.5. Monitoring, 10 checks complete. So, let's see. Optimum flight level 395, planned level 390. So let's go all the way up to flight level 390 for the cruise. Set. 390 checked. VNAV. And 390 is set once, twice, and 3 times. And we are monitoring 1 to 1.5. Okay, with that, the majority of our procedures are done for now, so we can start to sit back, relax a little bit, and enjoy the flight. And most importantly, enjoy the look at the absolutely lovely scenery up here in Scandinavia. Who knows, maybe Scandinavian has included the heads-up displays in their aircraft because they just want their pilots to be able to enjoy the landscape. Well, certainly I would have been happy if I had a head-up display in the 737. Yannick, is it you or am I very quiet? Can anybody else comment on that? Certainly to me. At least from the indications up here in my streaming program, it looks like everything is running just like usual on my side. Flight number 74, nice. I know Tromsø very well. I have lived there for many years. Now I live nearby Alta. Very nice, man. You must be enjoying those, the area up there. A little bit cold maybe for my personal taste, but apart from that... Okay, everyone else says sound is fine, so... Then, Swim and Climb is asking, I wonder what the fuel burn difference would be between the 737-600 and say a Dash 8 Q400 or ATR 72 that uses turboprop engines for a model with a similar seating capacity. Well, that is actually something that once we are in cruise flight, we are going to try to calculate. So, once we're up in cruise, we'll take out SimBrief and we'll run the same flight calculations for the same flight and then see what's going to come up. But what you have to keep in mind is that the seating capacity of a Dash 8 is in the region of about 80 seats, while the 737-600 has 130 seats. So we'd more or less have to take 2 times the fuel usage of a Dash 8 in order to come up to the 737-600. It is a small plane, but it's not that small. Like, if we look at this, it's definitely not the largest plane, but you know, it's not like small either. Certainly bigger than an Embraer or than a CRJ, something like that. Okay, let's do a quick pressurization check. The reverse L technique. Looking first at the cabin differential pressure, the cabin altitude, then the cabin rate of climb. Make sure the pressurization mode selector is in auto. Bleeds on, APU bleed off, packs auto, isolation valve auto, recirc fans on. Make sure you have sufficient duct pressure available. We just recently had a memo from my airline to actually check for the duct pressure values as well, because there have been a couple of cases where the duct pressure was insufficient and then the airplane could not pressurize, even though the switches were all set in the correct positions. And then of course check the temperatures. You aim to look at the passenger cabin temperature here, showing 26 degrees at the moment, which should be more than fine. And this is called the reverse L technique because it's basically going like this over the panel, so more or less it draws an L onto the panel, even though in a reversed direction. So, we're on the way. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that we are actually going to land in evening twilight up in Tromsø. Now, just before the flight I actually loaded my sim up over there because I wanted to know if it's going to be dark by the time we land there, because if that would have been the case I would have set the time to summertime, because I wanted to arrive in daylight. And I actually found out that with the timing of the flight as it is today, we are just about going to arrive in evening twilight, so that certainly promises some very, very impressive scenes when flying through the mountainous terrain up at Tromsø. And Elling, do I fly to Norway in real life? Unfortunately not. My airline goes there, but not from my base. I would love to fly there, but unfortunately not. And Stefan, is it more difficult to start the engines at very cold temperatures at the airport? Not really. To be honest, with the 737 and the electronic engine controls, there is not that much of a difference. What can happen from time to time when you have really cold temperatures is that the start valve freezes in the in the closed position, and then the engine is not going to start at all. I've had that happen to me. But apart from that, they really start as normal. The one thing that you need to have a look at when you're starting engines in cold conditions is the oil pressure during the startup, because hey, what's my landing lever doing there? I hit the wrong button. Okay, that's better. Up and off. Passing 30,000. We need to do the reverse L check once again. So cabin differential is approaching 8, cabin altitude 5,000, climbing at 500 feet a minute, and everything up here is looking good. Temperatures are good. It's going. So regarding what I said earlier on, with the engine starting cold weather, the only thing that you really need to be aware of is the oil pressure. So you need to have oil pressure indication by the time the engine has stabilized at idle thrust. So if it's really cold, then it might happen that the oil pressure initially is not going to rise. But if it is like medium cold, to call it that way, maybe around minus 10 degrees or something, then the oil pressure is initially going to rise very slowly, but as soon as the engine starts lighting off, the oil pressure is going to go really high and even up to the maximum of the scale. And only then eventually it's slowly going to come back down. So I've seen oil pressures as high as 100 or 120. And that can happen in cold weather. But the oil pressure only needs to be back to normal once the engine is stabilized at idle thrust, so it is permissible to watch that happen as we start up the engines. And Martin, NTSB investigation and wrong button inbound. Yep. You know, I'm using the Thrustmaster Boeing Yoke, which has a landing gear lever attached to it, but I'm also using the Honeycomb Bravo throttle, which also has a landing gear attached to it. So I'm always using the landing gear lever from the Bravo, and therefore my landing gear lever on the Boeing Yoke is always staying in the down position. So you might have heard it in the background. I accidentally hit that lever with my hand as I was reaching for the mouse, and that mispositioned the lever. And Coda 101, imagine extending the gear at Mach 0.8. Well, honestly, it can happen in real life. It can happen in real life. In our line training student notes in my airline, we even have that situation covered. So let's have a quick look into the landing gear limits here. So, landing gear limit for operation. Extending, 270 knots indicated, Mach 0.82. So as long as your speed is below 270 knots indicated and the MMO, you can extend the landing gear in the 737. However, you are not allowed to extend it above 20,000 feet altitude. But you could extend it. And sometimes in real life, when you're taking the lever and you place it in the off position, basically you are moving it downwards on the lever up here, and then you have to find that sweet spot for the off position. And when you do that, especially some new students tend to miss that position but think the lever is in it, and then just release it into the neutral position. And then the landing gear lever more or less sits in a position close to the middle, but not locked in place as it would be by the off position. And then when you hit some turbulence, the gear lever can fall into the down position, thereby extending the landing gear. But as you can see by the landing gear operating speed limits up here, 270 knots, 0.82, so if that happens in cruise, yeah, you're above the maximum altitude for landing gear extension, so it's gonna be an inspection. But if you look at the speed limit for landing gear retraction, 235 knots, and no Mach number specified. So as long as you're below 235 knots, you can just retract the landing gear again and then continue to destination. But if that happens above 20,000 feet, you'll have to get an inspection from an engineer. Apart from that, however, that stuff can certainly happen. And flight number 74, it's quite rare that the temperature drops below minus 10 or 12 at Tromsø during winter time. Yeah, it is indeed. It basically is quite rare to have temperatures that are much colder than 0 at most places that are located close to the ocean, because the ocean water is usually in the region somewhere around 0, maybe a little bit higher or lower, of course, and we have one to go, monitoring VNAV. But the ocean water isn't that, the ocean water isn't that cold, so it warms up the air temperatures as well. So close to the shore or close to the sea, it typically doesn't get too cold. If you look at the spots where it really gets the coldest on the world, so we're looking mostly at continental places like the Balkan region or like Russia. And of course we're talking about the continental regions there that get really, really cold. Then Yannick, how could altitude damage the gear? Mostly due to the Mach effects. So when you're flying at high speeds, the shock waves from the Mach numbers that you are flying, they can create forces on places of the plane where they are not expected. And you know, aircraft are built in a way that they are very, very strong and can withstand forces that come in the direction of flight or in the direction where the airplane manufacturer expects the forces to come from. However, if you exert forces on an airplane in a direction or in a way where they are not supposed to come from, then you can very easily damage an airplane. Like, imagine the skin of the airplane from the outside. If we're looking at this, this is quite strong and take quite a lot of the forces of the plane bending and being thrown around in turbulence. But if a car drives in it from the side, you are going to rip it straight open. So that's the thing with those aircraft. Okay, we're reaching cruise level. Con set. Then let's have a very quick look into the flight plan, see how we are performing in terms of fuel. So, top of climb should have taken 16 minutes and we took 17, perfect. We should have 4.4 tons of fuel on board and 1.44 used. And indeed, looking at this, we have 4.6 tons of fuel. And the fuel used, if we look at this, 1,760. No, sorry, 1,360. Used a tiny bit less fuel. 200 kilos more on board. We uplifted 150 more than planned. So that's actually very good. We don't have any FIR boundaries on the way because this is going to be entirely a domestic flight in Norway. And if we look at it over here on the map, provided the map loads. Come on, you can do it. Navigraph. Can you? Here we go. Slowly but steadily. Here we are. Okay, so if we have a look at the route of flight, we see that we're actually flying pretty much alongside the border between Norway and Sweden on our way up here towards Tromsø. Later on, we're going to have a marvelous view on the coastline, I hope, provided that there are no clouds. Okay. And Sky 173, hello, no more Tobii eye tracker. I still have the tracker installed and I can put it on at any moment here, really. However, here we go, now the eye tracker is enabled. The primary reason I'm not using it on my live streams is because my internet connection isn't 100% the best. And with the tracker, if I'm looking around all the time, you know, it would eventually start looking like this. And I know that the streaming quality of my live stream deteriorates from that. That's why I am not really using the eye tracker on my live streams. But be assured that I'm still using it very actively on my offline flights. It's just when taking YouTube videos, I need a little bit faster internet connection. So that you guys don't get blurry images when I am looking around quickly. And that's the reason I don't use the eye tracker too much. It's not related to the tracker at all, but it's really related to my internet connection and the live streaming. And I can absolutely still recommend it, Sky 173. I do believe they have a 15% discount option at the moment as well. Yannick, will I get the DHC4? To be honest, I don't know yet. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. And Zoe, you were quite close to the red line on the reverse L check for pressurization. Can an expedited climb exceed pressurization differentials? Nah, not really. The computer is smart enough that if you really climb too fast and you're getting close to the red line, it's just going to let the cabin climb faster. So in the real airplane, you see the cabin climbing at like 1,000 feet a minute from time to time. Of course, it depends a bit on the airplane as well, you know? There are some aircraft that always use 1,000 feet a minute. That's usually the moment where you just kick the plane because It's just uncomfortable. But some aircraft do that. Don't know why. We normally tell the engineers at the end of the duty, and then they try to recalibrate it over the night. And Coda 101, is it true that the skin of the aircraft is designed from panels that can basically tear off to prevent situations like the Honolulu flight? Yes, that's absolutely true. Let's try if we can actually see this. So, I don't think you guys can see it on the live stream, but if you have a very careful look, you will see that over here is a panel, over here is a panel, over here is a panel, and so on. So you just need to follow the riveting on the airplane's skin, and then you can really see where the fuselage is attached to the structure below it. And yes, that is exactly designed to prevent stuff like the Honolulu accident, where large parts of the fuselage ripped off the airplane. And if a single panel rips out, the cabin pressurization controller should in theory still be able to pressurize the cabin. However, I kinda doubt that that is actually going to work. That's probably more of an office thing they calculated at the desk at some point, because you would have a huge flow of wind in the cabin the entire time then, and that would probably hurt the passengers more than if you just had the decompression, did your emergency descent, and that's it. And Stick Harold Andreasen, enjoy my regular route. Couldn't fly today myself due to server offline issues. Yeah, Harold, those server issues I had as well, and I changed my server from my standard Western European to the Northern European server, which had the same ping, and now it's working perfectly. Now, of course, the moment I say this, I need to lose connection, but let's hope it's not gonna happen today. And Oliver, what airline am I working for? Well, unfortunately I cannot really tell, because my airline is not a huge fan of their pilots doing social media stuff, so I'm not an ambassador for my airline, and therefore I prefer not to say. A little bit further up, Swim Climb asked, many people say that the flight dynamics for Microsoft Flight Simulator are still not right, as many aircraft don't flare properly and will float on landing. Does the PMDG 737 land like real life? No it doesn't. And no aircraft does. It is true that when people say the flight dynamics in Microsoft Flight Simulator are still not right, those people are right. They aren't right. Now, they do represent the 737 on a general level. Like, I do like to say that for the game that we have over here, and note that I'm specifically using the term game, for the game that we have over here, it really behaves close to the real plane, but it's not exact, especially when you're getting to the landing physics. I will have a video up on that in the next couple of days, by the way, where I go into the details between the landing physics in the real plane and in Flight Simulator, so I will cover that in a bit more detail in a specific dedicated video, but it's not perfect. Microsoft Flight Simulator is still a game, you do notice that, and even with expensive hardware, MSFS just doesn't, you know, it doesn't mimic the real plane 100% accurately. However, it is worth mentioning that not even the full flight simulators we are using for training are perfectly matching the real aircraft. Especially on landing, they are still quite different, and that is the reason why new cadets who don't have experience flying an airliner yet still have to do landing training on the real airplane before they are allowed to fly with passengers. So, when a new cadet completes his type rating in the simulator, then he can land the full motion simulator without problems. But when you put them in the real plane for the first time, they need to do 6 landings on the real plane before they are allowed to take on passengers in Europe. And that landing training, believe me, there are some very interesting landings seen there. And at least in my airline, and I certainly hope that any other airline does the same, but at least in my airline, if the instructor on that landing training notices that the cadet needs a couple more landings, then they are going to do more than the minimum of 6 as well. Those are really interesting flights, by the way. In my airline we did that in the 737-700, and we were 6 cadet pilots on there, together with the training captain and the safety first officer. Now, for about 10 hours in a row, we just flew traffic patterns with the 737-700 in real life. And that was so cool. However, imagine what it is like to sit there and you have 5 other cadets doing at least 6 landings each. That makes 30 landings. And you sit there, and every time the plane impacts the runway, like, you know, everyone does like 1 or 2 greasers, but the rest of them are usually really hard impacts, you know, because it's just different if you fly the real plane or if you fly the full motion simulator. And if that happens, you know, 30 times before it's your turn, then after those 30 landings, you're finally getting up to the cockpit and taking the seat in that first officer's seat, which is the dream come true that you've worked on for such a long time. But then eventually, you know, you've already made it through quite a couple landings, and then it's your turn to do better. And believe me, you won't do better. You'll do the same hard landings and everything as well. And Yannick, yes, that's exactly what that plane is for. Originally it was purchased for VIP transports, but eventually somebody realized that when you're asking 20,000 bucks an hour, nobody wants to see that particular logo on an airplane. So eventually the plane is still from time to time used for VIP transports. Some soccer teams charter it from time to time, or some musicians or orchestras who need to transport a lot of people. But apart from that, it's mostly used for pilot training. And Sky 173, the training plane, is not built any differently to the standard plane. It's just a standard 737. The fact that there are airlines, or that at least that one airline that we're talking about has a dedicated plane that they mostly use for pilot training, is really just because, you know, they bought it for a different purpose, but then after all, that purpose didn't work out, so here we go. And Oliver, there is no updates on the EFB that I would be allowed to share. Sorry. And Yannick, would be amazing if there would be a way for a passenger to be in one of those flights. Believe me, they would never enter an airplane again. Never. You know, on those flights, before you do the first landing, because it can sometimes be a couple of weeks between completing the simulator training and then flying the real plane, because once the type rating is complete and you've passed the check ride, the license needs to be sent to the authority to actually get your type rating endorsed. And only once that is, and once the type rating is in your license, you are allowed to fly the real plane. So there's usually like a couple of weeks between completing the type rating in the simulator and then flying the real plane. So in order to get the feeling for the airplane first, what we did when I did my base training, as we call it, we departed straight ahead on the runway heading, and then we went around the block, but looking out the window. I don't want to say VFR because it was still IFR, but it was visual maneuvering all the time. So we went around the hood a little bit and, you know, did some turns, eventually did some steep turns as well. So you have that G loading of the steep turn, and then if the cadet messes it up and loses altitude, they need to pull quite strong on the yoke in order to get the airplane back up to altitude. So, you know, you have stronger G-forces over there, and that flight really is an adventure, and it is surely a once-in-a-lifetime experience, because you will probably never do something like that with an airliner again. It's just absolutely amazing to do a flight like this. Absolutely amazing, I can tell you. But of course it is quite expensive as well. Like, for a base training for a single cadet, an airline pays somewhere around 15,000 euros. So, you know, it's not a complete fun exercise. And of course it serves a purpose. Okay, Ras is asking, hello, I have the Boeing Yoke and I was wondering if I could use the Yoke itself as rudder, since I don't have any rudder yet. That's a good question, Ras. Now, if you want to use the Boeing Yoke in order to fly the PMDG 737, then yeah, what I would recommend is to assign the aileron axis twice. So assign it to the aileron and assign it to the rudder. Sorry, to the nose wheel steering. But don't assign it to the rudder, because except for aligning your airplane with the runway center line on takeoff and landing, you don't really use the rudder at all in a 737, so that's what I would do. And Luvik, is 15,000 euros considered a lot by an airline? Yes, definitely. I mean, of course you have to put it, if you put it in perspective, you know, airlines making profits of 200 or 300 million euros, then 15,000 does not seem a lot. But if you think about a flight making a profit of maybe 1,000 or 2,000 euros, then, you know, you've got to operate an aircraft an entire day in order to make good the money that you spent on the base training of that one pilot. So yeah, 15,000 euros is considered a lot. And B777 is asking, will we ever have wiper effects in MSFS, and do I know if Active Sky will be released for this simulator? I don't know about Active Sky, but so far I haven't really seen any weather engine that would have remotely impressed me in MSFS, because the default engine is just quite good. So I don't really see the need for any weather add-on in Microsoft Flight Simulator. They are all doing a very good job. And then, will we ever have wiper effects? Well, that is something that Asobo has promised to implement for 2 years now, but still waiting for it. And Alec, sorry if you already answered, but any chance you'll try out the new vertical sim Tampa anytime soon? I'm gonna think about it. I'm going to think about it. I'll really have to find the time to do live streams at the moment. Today I have a little bit of time, but later today I have to do a real life flight as well, so just after the live stream I need to go to work once again. So my time is a little bit limited at the moment, so my apologies if I can't cover any single scenery that comes out at the moment. But if the chance ever comes up, then I'm gonna have a look at Tampa. And Luvik, actually, is that 15,000 euros to get the cadets to a frozen ATPL? No, it's not. The way it works in real life is that once you have completed your flight training in flight school, so before you can apply to the airlines, you have a frozen ATPL already. And the base training where you spend those 15,000 is in order to get the cadet the license to operate the airliner with passengers on board. So in the EU it works like this. For any airliner, if a pilot has less than 500 hours flight experience on airliners, then you need to do training on the real airplane before you're allowed to fly with passengers. If you do the type rating, or if you have more than 500 hours experience, then an airline can be allowed to do the type rating completely in the simulator, so that when you fly the real airplane for the first time, you'll already have passengers on board. But for safety requirements, that is only allowed if you have already at least 500 hours of flight experience on airliners. And that's why you need to do those 6 landings with a real airplane if you hire a new cadet from flight school. And Geographically Inverted is asking, doesn't the Phoenix 320 have wiper effects? Yes, it does, but the reason it has wiper effects is because Phoenix developed a totally custom windshield rain effect, and that is quite FPS intensive to what I know. For sure I know that other developers have experimented with it and found that if they do a custom rain effect, it goes quite far into the performance. So the Asobo effect looks very good, and Asobo has promised to add those wiper effects to it, so there is just no sense for a developer at the moment to actually do those custom wiper effects, which would take a month of development time and then, you know, eventually be replaced by the Asobo effects anyway. Now, of course, at the moment those decisions were made, nobody knew how long Asobo would take to do this. But to my knowledge, it's still on their list, it is still coming eventually, but we'll just have to see, you know. Oliver, how did I come in contact with PMDG? Well, that is quite a funny story, actually. When PMDG released the 737 NGXU for P3D in 2019, by that time I've been a long-time PMDG aircraft user. I got my first PMDG at some point in 2009 or something, which was the MD-11 back then, and then I got the 737 NGX for FSX in 2011 when it came out. And ever since I've been using PMDG aircraft because I really liked them so much. And then eventually, when PMDG released the 737 NGXU for P3D V4 in 2019, by that time I was flying the real-life 737 for about a year's time. I started flying it in 2018. So in 2019 I had, you know, like 1,000 hours or so on the 737 when PMDG released theirs. And therefore, since I had a little bit of experience, I noticed quite a couple of bugs in the plane. And therefore I wrote up bug reports. And eventually the guys at PMDG noticed that the bug reports I wrote were pretty accurate, they were well explained, and they were always backed up with the correct documentation so that the developers could verify what I was saying. And that is pretty much exactly what you're looking for in a good beta tester. And then PMDG eventually contacted me and asked me if I would like to join the technical team as a technical advisor. So basically I was a normal customer, and because they liked the quality of my bug reports, they asked me to join the technical team. So that's how I came in contact with them. Then Yannick, may I ask how many flight hours you have currently? It's somewhere in the region, I don't know, 3,000, 3,500, something like that. And Zoe, thank you very much for the $5 Australian donation. Crew attendants offer you your favorite snack during cruise. Thank you very much, Zoe. That's much appreciated. Then, B777 is asking, will the EFB have the same interface as it had in the NGXU and P3D? No, it won't. It will become a different interface that is going to be more in line with the modern EFBs that we see in the airlines. So many airlines are using either iPads or Microsoft Surface tablets nowadays. And the interface we had in P3D was the original Boeing offered EFB from, 20 years back. And while that thing did what it was supposed to do, it is not really current anymore. So, EFBs just look different these days because everybody is using either iPads or a Microsoft Surface or something along those lines. And the new PMDG is going to be much more in line with those EFBs that you would find in use at the airlines these days in real life than the unit that was delivered. And Pro Hunter, I cannot tell you about any ETA. If I knew anything, then I would not be allowed to tell. Let me put it like that. Then B777, will the PMDG 737 and MSFS let us customize the floodlight colors? That's a good question. I honestly don't know. Let's try to see. So menu, PMDG setup. Where does it used to be? Options, colors. Then what do we have here? CDU, radios, chrono, MCP, ISFD, display units. No, it doesn't. And Ferrari RM and Yuan Orr. Hello to both of you, and nice to see you on a live stream here as well. And Yannick, the option was the option for the floodlight color changes was removed in MSFS because it was not functional. Okay, thanks very much for clarifying that, Yannick. Now, if I may add my 2 cents to that, I would guess, and note that I'm using the term guess over here, that in Microsoft Flight Simulator lights are coded quite differently than they used to be in P3D, so you can probably not just change those lights as easily as you could in the old simulators anymore. I guess it's hard-coded into the model or something like that. I don't really know. And Ludwig, does flying airliners so often and doing the... Oh, sorry. Sorry, I lost the line. Ludwig, does flying airliners so often and doing the same route a few times in a day get mundane after a while? No, it doesn't. But you don't really fly the same route several times a day. When I started at my airline, we had a day where we flew to the same destination twice in a row. And yeah, that could get a little boring at times, but you know, even though you're flying the same route, you know, there's still different traffic, there's still different weather and different parking spots, therefore different taxi routes, so it doesn't really get that boring after all. And William, testing out economy class chat, I guess. Yeah, welcome as a channel member, William. Nice to see you here. Then, Galliar36, can you tell us the weirdest or strangest experience you've had to deal with in your career as an airline pilot? That is a good question. The weirdest experience... Well, we've had weird passengers all around, of course, but... You know, I've had one passenger who paid for a secure seat in the very last row, and he was hoping to be first to disembark from the back of the plane then. And then the airport did not bring us... aft stairs, so we could only disembark through the front, and so he got out last of the plane. And he was very unhappy about that, and complained to me first. And then eventually the captain came out the cockpit, and I asked him, okay, so how much did you pay for the entire ticket and the secured seating? And that guy said, I paid 19.99 quid. The captain gave him 20 quid and literally told him to fuck off the plane. That was not the weirdest, but surely one of the most funny experiences I've had. Some people just feel entitled, you know, but what can we do? If the airport doesn't give us steps at the back, then what can we do? UFOs. Interesting point. Well, yes, I did see a UFO once. I did actually see a UFO. Now, we are pretty sure, however, that it was some military plane. But we once were cruising along at some 39 or 40,000 feet or something, and eventually, something black flew over us, and we had nothing on the TCAS, but it was pretty close. So, in terms of unrecognized flight objects, yeah, I would classify that as a UFO. And when we asked air traffic control if they knew about any aircraft flying over there, they just said, affirm. But no more comment, so that must have been something military flying there. Metal Eye, that's a great comment. When I meet you in real life, I will knock on the door and say Metal Eye donated $23.99. That will be the most weird moment, probably. Well, write that down on a piece of paper or something, and then slide it under the cockpit door. That would probably be one of the weirdest moments in my entire career. Like looking to the back of the cockpit and then seeing a little sheet of paper coming from the door saying like, "Hey, I donated you $23.99." That would be an amazing experience. That would be amazing. Then, let's get down to a little bit more serious points. Somebody asked earlier up if the PMDG 737 donate... Did I just want to say donate? Boy. If you just heard this sound, I just smashed my head onto the table. Does the PMDG 737 accelerate like the real plane does on takeoff roll? Asked from Randislav. Yes, it does. The acceleration is quite spot on. Of course, when you say you feel the PMDG reaches V1 and VR faster than the real aircraft, then of course you need to take into account that we are doing takeoff performance calculations in real life, and we don't take off with full thrust. Pretty much never we do. So we are always taking off with a reduced takeoff thrust, and if you use the same takeoff thrust setting in the PMDG as you do in the real airplane, then you also get the same acceleration and the same time to reach the takeoff speeds as you would in the PMDG. Of course, if in the PMDG you just go for the full thrust option in the PMDG, then surely you are going to reach your takeoff speeds quicker than if you were using a reduced thrust takeoff like we always do in real life. So that might be the reason why you feel it's different. And Fabian, are there any news about the engine behaviors like spool times, etc.? Work in progress, all I can say. A lot of things are actually not possible in Microsoft Flight Simulator. For example, in real life, when you are at high altitude and you need to accelerate the engine from idle to full thrust, it's going to take much longer than it does close to the ground. That is stuff that is just not possible in Microsoft Flight Simulator. But apart from that, there is some work being done on the engines in the background, yes. Then, B777, does the PMDG 737 in Microsoft Flight Simulator allow parallel 42 to create 737 immersion in MSFS? I honestly don't know. I would surely hope so, but I just don't know if that is even technically possible, And Metal Eye, it can happen, as you said, even ATC recognized your voice, so who knows? Yeah, exactly. The same, by the way, if I'm being sent out of base by my airline. By now, most people are like, "Hey, are you running a YouTube channel?" I'm like, "Yeah." So yeah, apparently some people know about my channel, not only in flight simulation. William, will the PMDG EFB come with a takeoff and landing performance calculator? Yes, absolutely. And B777, the cockpit looks a little purple in your opinion. I'm thinking right now. Metal Eye, $23.99 donation. Lays sheet of paper under the cockpit door. Thank you very much, my friend. Thank you very much, my friend. Now, what was I just about to say? B777 asking, the cockpit door looks a little purple in your opinion. Yes and no. So, right now, the entire thing looks a little purple, that is correct. But that's because the sun is slowly starting to set. Well, let's actually put that sun visor up here. And, in real life, the cockpit can take on a lot of different colors when the sun goes down and the color of the sun entering the cockpit varies. So the color tone of the cockpit really changes throughout the day. And yeah, therefore it can in the simulator as well. There are other times in the simulator where the thing is entirely gray, just like in real life, but as said, there is not... I wouldn't want to say there is one fixed correct color tone for the flight deck, because there are so many different circumstances and so many different ways the colors can look in the simulator that I wouldn't want to fixate on any of these. So yeah, overall, I do think that the PMDG 737 flight deck colors look pretty correct. Of course, there will be variations in the colors in real life as well. And then Konali, first of all, hello there. And secondly, every screen that is not calibrated will show the colors different anyway. Yep, absolutely correct. And Zoe, you have two gear handles on your controllers. Could you reassign one to something you use frequently, but that doesn't have a switch for it, like the park and brake or gear off center position? I thought about that, but I don't really use too many joystick assignments anyway. So on my joysticks I have that landing gear lever on the Honeycomb, then I have the autopilot disconnect, auto throttle disconnect, I have the trim buttons for the elevators, and I have one button to activate and deactivate the Tobii eye tracker, but that is it. For the most part of it, I'm really just using the cockpit controls inside the simulator rather than using button assignments on my joystick. And hello Baptist A, and hi Joey. So, Joey, hi Manuel, love your videos, they are very educational. I fly the PMDG 737-600, thinking about adding another 737 product, either the 800 or the 900, which would you recommend? Okay, Joey, that really depends mostly on the type of flying you would like to do. If you are in the United States, then I would say the 900 is probably a very interesting plane because a lot of US operators use it. If you are outside the United States and you don't happen to have that favorite airline that flies primarily the 900, then I would tend to recommend you the 800 more than the 900. And the reason is, first of all, the 800 is a lot more widespread among different airlines. So you have a lot more operators to choose from. And then the 800 package also comes with a freighter and with a Boeing business jet. So you can choose between all the different operators and even the different types of aircraft, while if you go for the 900 you are limited to a couple European, one Asian and mostly US carriers. So my recommendation would be more to the 800 than the 900. The 900 is very nice if you like flying in the United States, because a lot of US airlines are flying it. But if you are looking for a more variety of options, then the 800 is the better choice, in my opinion. Then going through the comments right now, Joystick, hey, I recently got into flight simulators. Can you tell me how to land the plane with a glide slope? I did a tutorial on that. Actually, I did a couple tutorials on the landing of the 737, so do have a look at those, where I explain things in very much detail. And Kimi Raikkonen fans, at first, did you find it strange to fly left side in the sim while flying the right side in real life? Well, for me it was the opposite way around. I flew the simulator for a long time before I started flying in real life. So I started flying Flight Simulator like 15 years ago, but only started my real life airline career 5 years ago. And therefore I was used to flying from the left side in the simulator. But when I started my theoretical ATPL course, I mostly actually started to fly from the first officer's seat in the simulator. So my experience was the other way around. I was first used to flying from the left seat for maybe 5 or 6 years in the simulator, and then when I started my ATPL theory, I started to fly from the first officer's seat in the simulator, you know, to get that feeling, if you know what I mean. And initially it felt really strange to fly from the FO seat in the simulator. The cockpits looked so completely different than they did from the captain's perspective that I really had to find my way through the cockpits again. And initially I really had problems even finding the stuff that previously I would have known if you woke me up at 3 in the morning. But when I started flying in real life then, I was used to sitting on the right seat already from the simulator, so that wasn't really a surprise. And these days when I'm flying in the simulator, often I even change between the left and the right seats on the different sectors. So yeah, that's for now it doesn't matter to me anymore which seat I'm flying from. Eric, hello, I have a question regarding nav aid tuning for the descent. Do you tune nav aids for the star in the primary navs and switch to the ILS later, or select the ILS frequency as primary and the rest to standby? Well, honestly, Eric, as long as we have a good ANP, so if we have a look down here on the nav display, be aware those are optional. If you don't find them on the nav display, you can always find them on the legs page down here. So if your ANP is good, then I wouldn't tune any en route nav aids. When I'm doing my setup for the approach prior to starting the descent, I usually set the ILS frequencies active, and in the standbys I put whatever is needed for a missed approach. But I normally don't tune en route stations or even stations that are situated on the star, because I don't want to have to redo the tuning while I'm flying the star, you know? The plane primarily flies based on the GPS, and as long as the ANP is looking good on the display over here, there is absolutely no reason to back that nav data up. At least not back it up manually, like, let me show you what the airplane is doing anyway. Okay, PMDG is a little bit differently arranged here. It's an older version than what we are using in my airline, so unfortunately I can't really show you right now, because the PMDG just looks a tiny bit different. But basically, yeah, here we have the basic version on the nav status page. So, you know, the 737 has a manual nav aid tuning, but as you can see in here, the plane has a couple more receivers, and internally it's tuning all kind of different stations, and it's using these stations, as you can see over here, to calculate the radio position that the airplane is using. So if we go back to the position pages, we can see we've got a radio position shown down here on the position reference page 2. So this is based on what I've just shown you, what the plane is using internally, and it is doing that just like the Airbus is auto-tuning its nav aids, just that the pilot still has his pilot-tunable nav aids down here, and you don't see those auto-tuned nav aids on the cockpit displays, but it's still doing it in the background, so the plane is still automatically tuning and checking its nav aids in the background. And Randeslav, do you know if PMDG is planning to issue a 189 passenger cabin? No, unfortunately they aren't. And geographically inverted, hey Captain, if you were to choose an unconventional aircraft to fly by design, which would you choose, a Canard or a Delta? I would go for the Canard. I would definitely go for the Canard. And Elling, how was your experience in the type rating? Did flight simulation experience help you during the training in the 737? Yeah, it absolutely did. Flight simulation made it a lot easier. In the month leading up to the type rating, I flew the PMDG very extensively. So when I started the type rating, I had a good idea of how the computers are working and how the systems are basically working. Of course, during the type rating, I still learned a lot of new stuff and a lot of the little details, but at least when it comes to operating the plane, flight simulation really helped me. And indeed, when we had 2 weeks during the rating to learn all the theory of the plane, learn the systems, and start to practice some of the basic SOPs, my simulator partner and myself went to my place and used the PMDG to practice the SOPs, and then on the first couple simulator sessions we were really light years ahead of where we were expected to be in terms of the knowledge and skills we should have had at that time. Yuan, Captain, have you ever been given a number to call, and are you brave enough to share with the group? I've never been given a number. Well, that is not true. I have been given a number once. But that was an entirely different situation and had nothing to do with messing something up. In fact, what happened there was I have a friend who is an air traffic controller at my home base, and he got a new phone number and a new phone, and he didn't have my number in backup. So when we met on the radio the next time, and he knew that I didn't have his new number, he told me, hey, I've got a number for you, report ready a copy. And then he gave me his new mobile number over the radio. That was a funny thing. But that is the only situation in which I've been given a number over the radio. Alright, we are slowly nearing the top of descent, so let me just quickly ask answer one more comment there. That's from Adam. What is the most common technical defect you see in the 737? Window overheat. So, the one up here, the windows, and you know they have this overheat function up there, and the most common thing you see is the window overheating. Then you run the checklist, which basically tells you flick the switch off, wait between 2 and 5 minutes, flick the switch back on, and then in 99% of the cases the thing is reset and it works again. And in the remaining 1% of the cases, you are limited to 250 knots maximum below 10,000, and that's going to be it. So that's the most common defect, I would say. Okay, so let's start preparing for the arrival, because we are quite close to the top of the descent already. If you have any more questions, by the way, like Kevin's latest question, could you just post them again once we've landed at our destination, and then we'll have a look over there, provided I have some time left, because I need to go to work in an hour and 10 minutes or so. But for now, let's get out Sim Toolkit Pro, have a look at the weather that we currently have at our destination, Tromsø. And we have the wind 190 at 10 kilometers, 3,500 meters visibility towards the south in light snow showers. Vertical visibility 2,000 meters, temperature 0, QNH 986. Temporarily 260 at 15, 1,000 meters visibility in snow shower, vertical visibility 800. The wind at 2,600 feet is 190 at 27. Okay, so that's perfectly good flying conditions. Let's have a look into the arrival then. We're going to fly the ILS approach to runway 18, and anything good on the overview here? That's from Google Earth, isn't it? Well, anyway. Runway 18, that's what it looks like. Okay, fair enough. So then, temperature is 0, that means we need to do some cold temperature corrections. Let's go ahead and do those first. Here's the cold temperature correction table. If you're looking into more details as to why we're doing those corrections and what exactly we're correcting for, then I can very much recommend you to check out my video on cold weather operations. So basically what we need to do is, first of all, we are going to figure out the temperature corrected MSA. And the MSA is 7,000 feet, while the airfield is basically located at 0. That means if we look at the table, airport temperature is 0 degrees, so 3,000 feet is 170. That means the corrected MSA will just add 500. Then we're going to be conservative. So 7,600 is going to be the temperature corrected MSA. So any altitude below that needs to be temperature corrected using the table that we have on screen here right now, which is taken directly from the Boeing AFCOM. So ADWAC 6,000. That means if we look at the table, that's basically 2 times 3,000, so plus 340 feet. So the new restriction becomes 6340 above. Enter. Non-RU 5,000, so we are gonna take the 170 feet plus the 2,000 value, 120, so plus 290. So 5290 above. The same at Oddbot, 5290 above. Then Baxas, 500 feet less, which means 290 minus the 500 value, so plus 260. So 4760 or above. 3250. Can't you give me an easy number? Anyway, we'll take it as 3000 and then the 200 value, so that's plus 190. So you can give me 3440 at. Okay, and then over here plus 170 makes 3170 or above. And then the 5,000 we set is going to become 5,090. Okay, we can get rid of this one. 250 below 100, forecast, request. So let's see, transition level by ATC. So that's the cold temperature corrections almost done then. The last thing we need to correct is the minimums. So if you look at the chart, minimum ILS approach, category Charlie airplane 321, which is 300 feet above the field elevation, so plus 20, so 341 is going to become the new temperature corrected minimums there. Takes a little while to dial in the PMDG, unfortunately. I really hope they're gonna do something about this, because it's so annoying. In the real plane this takes a couple seconds and then you've got the minimums dialed in. Okay, 341, that's what we need. Then the approach is a 4-degree slope, as we can see in the chart over here. So 4-degree slope, which means we are going to slow the airplane down accordingly. And then for the QNH we have 986. Transition altitude 7,000, so transition level 90 is looking good. And due to the visibility we're gonna take a 5-mile ring. So 10 miles and 5 miles, and 3 times cruise level is going to be 117. Okay. So, final approach course 183. And one more time. 183, frequencies 109.9. And finally, what do we need for the missed approach? I'm straight at 7.70 Tango Romeo, that's the ILS. Or 3000, whichever is earlier, then turn right, intercept proceed 010 to Kilo Victor locator to hold. Okay, Kilo Victor 362, can tune that on the ADF. 362. And then of course ADF1, ADF, and ADF. Okay, reaching the top of descent already. Let's start our descent and then we'll do the approach briefing on the way down. About something like 20,000 feet or so, that should be good. Okay, so threats for the arrival. We have high terrain in the area, the MSA is up to 7,100 feet. We talked about the cold temperature correction already, so that's nothing that we need to worry about. And apart from that, I don't really see anything that we'd have to take into consideration here. It might be a little bit snowy and slippery on the runway, so I'm not 100% confident that they have cleared the runway. So that's something we need to be worried about as well. If it is really snowy, we're going to use maximum reverse, otherwise we can take idle reverse. And be sure not to stow the reverses before stopping the airplane is actually assured. And that should be mostly it. Let's have a look into the arrival then. Charge 10-2 Bravo, effective 25th of March. RNAV 1 and GNSS required. Radar shall be available. Vectoring may be used for sequencing to final when necessary. Descent as cleared by ATC. Elevation 32 and 50 feet is set up here. So we're coming from here at Abweg. And looking into this, Abweg 6,000 above, we corrected that 6,340 above, towards Ulnik, then Bami and Nonru, which is the clearance limit. We have Ulnik, Bami, Nonru. From there we're going to join the ILS approach, Romeo 18, chart 11-1, 4th of November 2022. Frequencies 109.9, set once, twice, and 3 times. Final approach courses 183, 1, 2, and 3 times. Elevation is 14, and then for the approach from Nonru, we fly Nonru to Okbot. Nonru, Okbot, both are above 5,000 feet, and from Okbot towards Baxas. And Baxas 4,500, corrected 4,760. Down to Kilo Victor 3,250, and that's corrected 3,440. 4-degree glide, so we will have to carefully evaluate if we have to lower the landing gear already a little bit earlier, but we'll see about that depending on how strong the headwind is, since the 600 does decelerate quite okay. In case of misapproach, straight at to 3,000 feet or 7.7, whichever is earlier. In here we have an 8-mile point, but no 3,000 feet restriction there. So we might have to start the turn manually, and then intercept and proceed on 010 to Kilo Victor, and here we have 013 to Kilo Victor. That's good enough for me. Climb to 5,000 and hold, do not turn before the missed approach point. Okay, so 5290 is the corrected missed approach altitude. 250 below 100, forecast page filled out, fixed rings, Romeo 18, 10 miles, 5 miles, and we're going down to a minimum 321 becomes 341 with the temperature correction applied. Okay, so fuel on the arrival is going to be 2.6. The minimum for diversion is 2.0. That gives us 600 kilos extra, which is 15 minutes or second approach. And then we are going to burn 400 kilos, which makes 52.4. On the gross weight, flaps 30 landing, 125 knots, plus whatever wind correction is going to be necessary, so our approach speed is going to be somewhere in the region 135, 140, I believe. Going to vacate the runway to the right, and if we have a look into the chart once more, landing on 18, vacate the runway to the right, Charlie or Bravo, and then we end up pretty much directly at the apron. So if we have a look at the parking stands over here, might be quite snowy on the aprons, so there is a chance that we are not going to see a lot. In the worst case, we are just going to stop the airplane and get a mashallah to escort us to the gate. Okay, and that's pretty much it. Any questions, comments or concerns? No? Very good. Then I'm quickly going to talk to the passengers. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening again from the cockpit. This is your captain speaking. We've started our descent towards our destination airport. The remaining flight time is in the region of about 25 minutes. Weather in Tromsø is currently quite winterish. The temperature is 0 degrees, couple snow showers in the area. I would like to thank you very much for choosing Scandinavian Airlines for today's flight. Hope that you have enjoyed it as much as we did, and we look forward to welcoming you again on board of a future SAS flight. Thank you very much for your attention, and we wish you a nice and safe continuous journey. Okay, descent checks. Pressurization, land out 50, anti-ice off for now. Speed and altitude box checked, and I'm going to use ORBX 3. Checked and set. Approach and fuel brief discussed. Descent checklist complete. Felix is asking, any chance the online multiplayers get displayed in the PMDG TCAS in the future? Well, at least VATSIM traffic is displayed already, so you can see somebody just about 10 miles behind us over here. So VATSIM traffic is displayed. Apart from that, I don't know. Just try to contact PMDG and see what they have to say. Okay, last thing by the way that we still need to do, set up the head-up display. Runway elevation 14 and runway length 2140. Enter. Okay. Perfect. Now we are pretty much all set up. Slowly starts getting dark, so let's turn those displays down a little bit. I really like the middle position of the displays over here. That provides a very good level of brightness. In the real plane, the dimmers of the displays do work a little bit different than they do in the PMDG. So in real life, if you put the knobs into the middle position, they have a light sensor. Basically, you see the sensor over here, that little white thing on the bottom of the displays. And then you also have one for the outside lighting, which is located up here in the glare shield. And then the displays are set automatically to the correct brightness. That really makes your life quite a bit easier. But we don't have that in the PMDG because it's not possible to measure the actual lighting level in MSFS. So the middle position usually works pretty well for the vast majority of flight conditions. During daylight, the default very bright works as well. In real life, you know, sometimes we set them to the maximum, sometimes we leave them at the middle position. Both of them work. And personally, I usually set them to the maximum in daylight, and then when it gets dark I set them into the middle position once the twilight starts setting in, and then the automatics do a very good job to adjust the display brightness. Yoke, have I used HOT in real life in the 737? Unfortunately not. Here in Europe they are not really popular. In fact, I only know a single operator that has head-up displays here in Europe, and that is Corendon Dutch Airlines. I believe they have one 737. And Sky 173, unfortunately I can't really tell you anything about the weather radar, because PMDG is waiting for Asobo to release a useful API, which they haven't done yet, so yeah, that's really it. Blood, any requirements on which course to set on the MCP during pre-flight? Well, if you've got a standard departure that has a conventional backup available, then you should tune that conventional backup. If you don't have such a departure, then just set the runway heading. And if you're using a heads-up display, then it is recommended to set the runway heading anyway and tune the ILS frequencies of the associated runway that you're taking off on, because it is going to give you the steering cue. Ron Thundersar, how often in real life do pilots use a follow-me car? I've never had... Well, yes, I had the situation once where we actually requested run from air traffic control, but on the vast majority of airports in real life, follow-me cars are provided even without asking for them. At my home base, for example, it would not even be allowed to turn onto the gate without a follow-me, so we always have follow-me cars at my home base, and at a lot of places that we fly to, follow-me cars are provided all the time as well. For example, on the Canary Islands, you are always going to have a follow-me car. So they are really commonplace, the follow-me's. They are used a lot. Okay, we're about to enter the clouds. Temperature, oh, minus 30, wow. That's cold here. What's the minus 42 outside at 21,000 feet? That is cold. But in a descent, we need to activate the anti-ice nonetheless. In climb, with the temperatures below minus 40, you would not have to turn on anti-ice. In descent, you always need to do, so anti-ice on. Okay, so at this moment in real life, we would probably go over into sterile cockpit already, so we would stop doing all the talking and just focus on the plane. Now, in Flight Simulator we can see it a little bit less strict, so I'll still go over that. By the way, something I noticed earlier on in the pre-flight, I believe since this is the 600, I did actually not configure my options yet. No, I didn't. Let me just quickly do those. I kinda like the show thrust lever position when moving, auto throttle override and thrust hold and descent modes only. Don't set the actual Flight Simulator course, hate that. High idle and flare, know that this option helps you to make really smooth landings, but it always makes you float. You always float when you use this. Okay, callouts, yes. I like my direct sim control. Okay, that's my option set. Okay, let's see about the plane behind. Still about 10 miles, very good. So he's flying similar speed as we are, probably a little bit faster I guess. But we are going really slow as well. Which is funny, in real life we always do 245 knots on the descents as well. Unless, of course, we are being held high by air traffic control, then we go faster to make up the drag. If you've seen my video on what to do when you're getting high, then you know why that is. But at 245 knots, if we just do an econ idle descent, you know, we are always the ones who are hindering everybody. But it's most economical, You can spend almost half an hour with the engines in idle thrust at this speed in the descent, so it really saves you fuel. So that's the reason we do it. Oh, it's getting really dark outside. Let's get a little bit of background light on as well. In real life I don't like the AFDS floodlight, but in the simulator I like it in order to be able to find my buttons over here. Okay, and approaching 15,000, faster modes on. Entering some rainy areas over here. But no ice on the wipers. That is basically on here is where you would see if you were to expect some icing. Brian, I'm gonna do 245 now. The plane wants to do a little bit less, but I'll force it to do 245, sorry. But you can do the same with the 800 as well. If you go for cost index 6, or if you just manually type 245 knots, then the 800 can do the same descent at 245 knots. I mostly fly the 800 in real life. Occasionally a 700 or a max, but mostly the 800. So, quick look into the latest weather. It's now 190 at 22 in 7,000 meters, light snow showers, vertical visibility 1,900, temperature 0, QNH 986. Becoming 260 at 15, and temporarily we have 1,000 meters in snow showers, vertical visibility 800. Okay, and the wind at 2,600 feet now reads 220 at 18, gusting 30. So that can get quite a bumpy approach then. Okay, anyway, let's go down 5,300 feet for the next altitude restriction and set altimeters 986, and I'm gonna give it level change over here, then we can take a shortcut over there, make life a little bit easier for the guy behind us. So set altimeters 986. Passing 12,600. Now descending 5,300. No flags. Standby altimeter set. Okay, first check. Actually, no, we don't get the items yet. Okay, then we can wait for a bit. Turn the HUD down a little bit more. It's quite important that you don't just yank the brightness of the heads-up display up. Indeed, the manufacturer recommends to put the brightness down as much as possible so that you can just about see the HUD, while primarily being able to see what's outside. So something like this maybe? William, is it a bug in the head-up display when you move the camera to landing? Not quite sure what you mean there, sorry. Okay, passing 10,000 is 75,300, 10 checks. Fuel balanced, 4 pumps on, lights on, angle of bank, 25, air conditioning and pressurization. 4.4 descending and set. Fast melts on, recall, checked 1 to 1.5, deselected, 10 checks complete. And of course, cabin crew 10 minutes to landing. Okay, let's have another quick look into the approach charts to see what the terrain looks like underneath our slope. So over here we have 2690, and up here is actually mostly water, so if we take a shortcut up here, that should be quite alright to do. Yeah, then let's go on a heading. Take a shortcut for ourselves here. Then we can ascend 3,500 feet. Axis on top. Pull a speed brake to help the plane getting down. Okay, let's do a frisk check. Frequencies 109.9, set active on both radios. Fixed rings, runway 18, 10 miles, 5 miles. Idents, we've got Tango Romeo and Tango Romeo. Standby instruments set, courses 183. Frisk complete, approach checklist. Altimeter instruments, cross checked, approach aids checked and set. Approach checklist complete. Yeah, let's start slowing the plane down. Flaps 1. Speed checked. And then we can turn base. So right now I'm basically judging the altitude based on the glide slope indicator on the standby instrument over here. Because the primary flight display will only show you the glide slope when you are within 90 degrees of the final approach course. But the standby is always going to show it. That's why I've activated the display over there. Okay, flap 5. And looks like I've underestimated the wind over here. We will go through the center line and then intercept from the other side. That's quite a strong wind indeed. There is some terrain over there up to 3,000, but we are safe above that. Indeed, I'm just going to keep the plane on the glide slope over here right now. Go to vertical speed. Now I'll just use vertical speed mode to keep the plane on the glide, while I set the speed back down already, so that we can let the engines stay in idle while the plane decelerates at the same time. Okay, let's go another few degrees to the right here. 220. Okay, sensible indications. Approach armed. 1,500 feet a minute. Keep in mind this is a 4-degree glide slope. This is going to be particularly interesting for the guy following me in the 737-800. This is a 4-degree glide, so be very careful that you are able to maintain your energy on the arrival. Actually, to lose your energy on the arrival. Okay, so localizer capture, glide slope capture. Runway heading 183, missed approach 5,300 feet set. Flaps 10. So, let's have a little fun. Oh, and of course it is going to be a 4-degree glide slope. Come on. 4.00. No A3 mode, okay. So you can give me IMC, please. You? Okay, approach lights in sight. Checked. The traffic Scandinavian TH Tango established 5 miles final runway 18. Gear down, flat 15. Landing checklist. Start switches, continuous, recall, check, speed brake, on, green light, landing gear down 3 green, auto brake 3 set, flaps 30, set VREF plus 11. So 125 plus 11 makes 136. I complete the landing checks. Flaps 30, 30, green light, landing lights on, landing check is complete. Cabin crew, please take your seats for landing. Okay, manual flight. Perfect. Okay, we are on the glide slope and the PAPI shows us 4 bytes. Well, I'm going to ignore the PAPI in this case. Seems like the PAPI is not calibrated correctly. Continue.
100.
Perfect.
Minimums.
Continue. Okay, speed brake up. Thrust reverse normal. Braking action seems good. 100 knots. Manual brakes. Auto brake disarm. Okay, we'll take the next exit. Okay, that is really snowy here. Let's slow the thing down properly. 5 knots. Looks good. The traffic Scandinavian 3H Tango, runway 18. Okay, that is hardly anything visible here. We can see a couple of lights at least. And there comes the other airplane. Okay, you know what? I can't really see anything. I'm going to stop the airplane here. First of all, let's clean it up. And to keep the engine anti-ice on, the same goes for the propede, and start the APU. Then let's have a look which gate we actually want to go to. So I would say gate number 20 looks good. And if I just can't see any taxi lines, then gate only 23. Why do I not see the other gates here? Oh boy, okay. Well, if GSX doesn't work, it doesn't work. Then we've just got to find our way. And let's just take not this one, but the next one. We'll just take gate number 19, which is going to be the next left. I hope that I could just stop the airplane here and then get a follow me car, but, you know. Okay, the guidance system is off. We don't have any ground crew. Yep, that sounds about like a typical day. If the APU is off. Let's see if I can make a halfway decent parking anyway. That should be good enough. Brake set, 2 blue, 1 red. Engine's dead. Having true doors to manual and cross-track. Okay. Engine 1 and 2 below 20%. Cut-down checklist. We're gonna leave the plane here, then we can turn the propedes off as well. So, fuel pumps, 1 on, electrical. APU, fast modes off, window heat off, propede off, anti-ice off, hydraulic pumps off, voice recorder auto, air compacts auto, engine bleeds on, APU bleed off, exterior lights set, start switches off, auto brake off, speed brake down to 10, flaps up no light, parking brake set, start levers cut off, weather radar off, transponder 2000 standby, CB in, cockpit door unlocked. Shutdown checklist complete. Okay, then let's go ahead. We want a ground power. Let's see if we can dock that jetway. Yeah, we can. Nice. Hey, you guys can start deboarding and you guys can start offloading, please. So, let's see how well I parked. By the way, in case you see some horrible frame rate right now, that is not only on your computer, that is also in my live stream. Sorry, on my computer. And with the stuttering, I have the same problem. I don't know why it is, guys. My apologies for that. I don't know why this is happening here. Anyway, I would like to thank you everybody for watching and hope that you have enjoyed something. Now, Andrew, what is your object level of detail? I believe it's set to 100. Okay, anyway, I need to start preparing for work. I still got 2 flights to do in real life, so I'm very much looking forward to see you all again, hopefully very soon. Until then, thank you very much for watching, and as always, if you want to support the channel, you can do that through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below, or by becoming a channel member, which is going to give you exclusive access to new videos before they release for everybody. Thank you very much, everyone, and I'm looking forward to see you all.